It is the fourth and final day of HGC 2017 group action here at the beautiful Blizzard Arena in Burbank, California. Good morning and good day to you. I am Kevin Michael Johnson, your host. We've got an exciting set of matches for you today. Yesterday, though, quick recap, we saw two teams advance. Dignitas and Roll20 join the likes of MPP Black, Tempo Storm, Fnatic, and Team Freedom on the BlizzCon stage. Next weekend, we have two more spots up for grabs for that round of 8, and it's all going down today with Group D. Those matches, first up, SPT, China's #1 seed up against Soul Torturers from Taiwan. This one's looking to be a bit of a grudge match, so you'll want to catch it for sure. Then follow that with Team Expert from EU up against the #1 seed from Korea and reigning champs from BlizzCon 2016, Ballistics. Now, let's head on over to our analyst desk to the man who puts the H in HGC and the Z in ANZ, James Colares-Carroll.
Thank you very much, Cloaken. Always a pleasure to have you here along for the ride for HGC 2017 Finals. And what we've got coming up today, I'm hoping is not going to disappoint, because the last 3 days we've seen a variety in strategies, we've seen upsets, we've seen a whole lot of stuff. To my left-hand side, we have Grubby, we have Dread, and we have Trixler. Guys, so far, it's been a very varied and exciting tournament.
Yeah, we thought we're going to have a lot of double support play. We heard this on the Ether through the grapevine.
Yeah.
But actually, we've been very happily surprised seeing a lot of different heroes, a lot of different styles, a lot of single support play as well. And every day there's a bunch of new heroes and even some really cool new styles, thanks courtesy to North American teams as well.
I think that even kind of trickles down to the map selections that we've seen from all these teams. It does feel like we have not formed, a consensus of what is going to be the competitive meta, and we maybe not see that up until, quarter semifinals. So it's been amazing to see that level of diversity, but the map pool is the biggest thing for me. It almost always feels like in an international event, there's one map that stands out, and so far we haven't been able to find it.
Games that are set up here. The individual games have been wonderful. Look at yesterday, Roll20 against Tempest. I don't think anyone expected a 2-0, especially in the fashion that we saw it happen in. So every game, man, you look at them, you can't help but enjoy them. They're amazing.
That's right. Of course, not only is the BlizzCon trophy and the HGC Finals trophy up for grabs, but also the matter of $1 million, which will be distributed between all of these teams. The breakdown is as follows, with the first place grabbing themselves a cool $500,000. $100,000 each. Basically, Grubby, that's life-changing money.
Yeah, I mean, especially depending where you come from. For example, SPT coming from China, that's a lot of yearly wages in one single tournament. Now, of course, they have been leading up to a tournament like this for many years. They've been playing for 3 years, most of them. So it's the culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and not like how some people sometimes say, like, oh, I'd like to go and play one gaming tournament and get $100,000. No, this is the combination of a lot of hard work. We all know that, right? But it is certainly a huge sum of money.
Yeah, definitely. One team, of course, that, as Grubby mentions, going forward into today. There's 3 others, though, as we can check in with the bracket to see how things are going to break down. So it's a double elimination bracket, Trixler, and overall, that's a good lineup of teams. A very solid group today.
Yeah, if Group C didn't have so many powerhouses, I think many would look at Group D as the next group of death. You have so many wonderful teams here. You have Ballistics, who is a reigning champion from BlizzCon 2016, so you can't count them out. Then you have Team Expert, who I think is one of the best in Europe. The top 3 has always been wonderful. And then you have SPT, the best in China, playing in this matchup. And then one of the best minor regions, Soul Torturers.
It's very hard to be able to gauge, who's going to come out on top here in this group. But the team I have my eye on for the most part is going to be SPT. China has always been, a pleasant surprise so far from the other teams that we've seen being able to perform here. But the dominance that they were able to show within China as of late suddenly makes me go, I'm very optimistic towards their success, even within this competitive group.
23-5 was their end record for the year.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
They did have a kind of self-awareness about that. In the absence of E-Star, they've kind of filled the vacuum here of the most powerful team in China.
Yeah.
But that's still a competitive region, and that's still a very impressive result.
You're wearing your Team Expert tie, I see, today. So obviously they came second at the Western Clash, and the only thing that really kind of truly tripped them up was Fnatic. So what are their prospects going into
So
this
the
group?
cool thing about Expert is I feel like they are very grounded. They're very realistic.
Yeah.
They did lose 0-6 to Fnatic at the Western Clash, but they felt that they were a little bit behind in many different areas, culminating in that kind of result. But when you look at their gameplay, they were very far ahead against Fnatic sometimes, and it really was just one shot call sometimes, one positioning that made them lose. And if they've done any improvements since then, and one can imagine that they have, they're going to be an absolutely formidable team and probably much better than third team from Europe might suggest.
Right, we can continue this on in a moment, but for now, let's get you up to date with how the games are going to break down as today progresses, as we will have 5 series in total. Once again, I felt like a lot of the days were going to be fast 2-0s, 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 but no, we've had a lot of 2-1s so far. No doubt we'll get some more today. Later on, we'll have Ballistics going up against Team Expert. That is a very highly anticipated fixture, and then our first match will be SPT going up against Soul Torture. So Dread, Trick, also, what do you think about Team Expert? You can even highlight some of the other teams if you really want.
The biggest thing I want to highlight about Expert specifically is that I do think that their playstyle will be more successful against non-European teams than it will against within Europe itself. I feel like the creativity and unique playstyle that they can present if their backs are against the wall is something that everybody has to be very, very afraid of. And it feels like the amount of time that the European players have had to be able to learn, you know, the mastermind of ADRD, Ethereal Angel, Bad Benny, like the strategies that they have, they've learned to be able to deal with that. But I feel like these other regions are really going to struggle into it.
I mean, you talk about creative and unique, and yes, Expert can be that, but they're also a team that plays every single type of composition well. They have a great leader in-game, Bad Benny. This guy on a tank is deliberate and effective, and the thing is, he's backed up by one of the best assassins in the HGC. Quietly, one of the best assassins in the game. Nick is a complete powerhouse that will dominate anyone that is in front of him. I look forward to this match, Ballistics and Expert, as my match of the day.
Yeah, it definitely looks to be that. It looks a very, very cool fixture coming up in a few moments' time. For now, though, of course, we can talk about that in a few moments' time as we do introduce you today to Group D to find out who moves on to BlizzCon.
So to prepare for HG finals, like us and other teams from Europe went to bootcamp in Korea, where we could practice versus Korean region and also versus us. So I think that it helped us a lot coming up here. Okay, so in Korea we practiced a lot versus MVP Black and Tempest, and we played also versus Ballistics, but a little bit less since they're in our group, so both of us didn't want to play too much versus each other.
So in our group, we play Ballistics first, and our goal is to get the first seed, which means we need to win every matchup. Ballistics is obviously the hardest one, given that they're the second Korean seed, and yeah, if we can beat them, we can beat the others, I'm pretty sure.
So in our group, the one team that I'm not so sure about it is SPT, since Chinese region had a lot of problems with visa, so we basically never could see their full strength. So I think this is like the strongest SPT team that we will see this year.
我们的优势在于就是我们节奏好，就是打国内的战队的时候，我们都是就是稳住，然后慢慢打自己的节奏。像我们国内巨龙阵这张图，我们就从来就没输过，所以我们对这种打节奏的图就优势很大。但是因为我们这次有一个辅助，就是原本的辅助那个张志豪签证问题来不了嘛，就是补了一个 RPG 的那个萨队，然后我们还得慢慢磨合，就是重新找一下节奏。
对于还有一个 ST， 因为我们经常跟他们分在一组各种比赛，但是我们因为总有一个队员签证的问题，然后只能无奈带上老板 Simba， 然后每次都输给他们，然后我只想对他们说，这次我们一定会复仇的。然后还有一句话就送给他们，就是你们这次又跟我们分到一起，你们的运气这次应该已经用完了。
我们队伍在这个礼拜主要是先熟悉这个 meta， 然后练一些适合这个 meta 的阵容，然后跟我们的默契，因为我们队伍刚组成，所以默契不是很好，我觉得我们在这里需要加强。我觉得我们队伍的 特色跟优势就是可能多了2个新加坡人，因为他们的加入就是让我们战术变得很多样化，因为他们在他们那里学的，还有我们这里学的，就是我们两边的意见可以互相讨论，看怎么样让队伍更好。然后还有就是这次的队员，就是其实在相处下来蛮好的，就是我们有什么失误都会提出来，那我觉得这点可以让我们进步。对，
我觉得我们这次可以晋级总决赛，也就是大家相处得很好，都像朋友一样，不太会有吵架、争吵之类的问题，所以我觉得我们这次可以打得不错。
저희는 이제 팀워크적으로 점점 더 좋아지려고 하고 있고 이제 개인이 또 따로 연습도 많이 하고 준비를 열심히 하는 것 같습니다. 저희 팀이 항상 그 여러 가지 시도를 하기 때문에 그 상황이나 그날의 느낌에 따라서 저희가 연습했던 것 중에 이제 좀 새로울 수 있는 전략을 보여드릴 수 있을 것 같아요.
이번 경기를 위해 유럽 팀들이랑 같이 연습을 좀 많이 해서 같이 연습하고 왔어요. 일단 B조에서는 소울토처스 팀은 좀 쉽게 이길 수 있을 것 같고, 그리고 웬만하면은 저희 발리스틱스랑 그리고 익스퍼트는 웬만 올라갈 것 같고, 이변이 있다면 SPT가 이변을 일으키는 게 아니라면 무난하게 저희랑 익스퍼트가 올라갈 것 같아요.
And that is Group D. And I think the most important thing to highlight there is that Misaka going into this first series is out for blood, Trixler. We heard it from them.
Yeah, there's a bit of a, I wouldn't say bad blood, but some aggression towards each other. The Eastern Clash, SPT came in, we're having a few subs in, we had Simba filling in, and ST was able to easily clean them up with a 2-0, and there were some words that were exchanged, and ever since then, they have been looking forward to this match. So the first game that we start out with is going to be pretty electric.
It's pretty awesome that we were able to get this kind of international grudge. It's very rare that we have teams kind of, picking battles on the other side other than, the banter between NA EU that is, the playful side of it all. But when it's actual grudge sitting here to kick off Group D, it's really exciting.
Can we talk about what was said? I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
When they went for the winner's handshake, SPT versus Soul Torturers, Soul Torturers apparently said, thanks. After they had won, so SPT has just about had it, and that's why they said, your luck has run out, we're coming for you this time.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And now, of course, that is going to be our first fixture in just a few moments' time. Let's focus on SPT to see, how they're going to be moving into this series. I think it's fair to say, at this point, they've sort of conquered the position in China. E-Star was there for a long time. Then I felt CE was going to take it, but SPT has stepped it up recently.
That they have. And, man, my heart out to the guy, Simba. Obviously, he filled in for the team when they needed somebody. He was there to help them out, but he was not cutting it, and he wasn't ready for the roster, and it really did hurt them in the last couple of tournaments. This is our first look at months at international play that we'll see this roster together. Now, they do have a sub in, obviously, with Sa, but it's a big pickup for them.
Yeah, it is a big pickup. Sa is very, his credentials are very much there, playing with RPG up into the past. But the biggest thing that I want to highlight is that San Xiao is a player that has grown drastically over the past year. But if you look way back at his play, he used to be way too aggressive, just committing far too much into the backline and creating a problem. And they admitted, ZZH was there to be able to aid him and kind of warning him, hey, this might be too far, way too aggressive. So the fact that they have the support being lost here without ZZH, I feel like their hyper carry, one of their biggest playmakers, is really going to be hindered or at least tested at this level.
And that's going to be a big challenge. Even now in the team interview, they said that Chen Xiao can be a little reckless. But even though they play with a sub, they do have their humility where it should be. Like, they had a very deflated or let's say very grounded sense of self here. They said, like, we know it's going to be a challenge, but we're a good team and we're good at the macro play, and it's going to probably, hopefully, work out in some way.
Yeah, and of course, on the other side of the battlefield, we have Soul Torturers, who arguably, out of all of the minor regions, out of when they've come to the international stage, they've been the best.
Yeah, I mean, we started first looking at minor regions as a region to actually look at as a legitimate dark horse somewhere around BlizzCon last year.
Yeah.
Soul Torturers doing surprisingly well there. And even now, they said they have some special strategies and heroes up their sleeve. And they recognize playing on day 4, which it is today, the team that was going to be doing the best is the team that adapts the fastest. They, as well as all their team, all the other teams in this group have been looking at day 1, 2, and 3. How did the meta evolve? Like, how can we use what we've seen today on that match day of day 4?
And they did admit that they have seen practice and play here from SPT into the past, and so that depending on the smart level of play that they want, being able to adapt here, that is something that I think is going to be a must if they're going to overcome the individual skill that we see out of SPT. Even though they do have the sub, I'm pretty confident that SPT is going to look pretty fierce here in this tournament.
For me, Soul Torturers also mentioned that they do feel a little bit of pressure to live up to the old hype of old Taiwan teams. PBA, Please Buff Arthas, obviously had some great runs in the past. So they're here with a little bit of pressure on their shoulders, but it's good for them to start coming out against SPT. As you mentioned, this is a matchup that they know very well. It's all about adapting and being ready and set up for this meta that is specifically being played at this tournament.
Let's check in with the global cheer bar as the HGC universe continues to cheer for their favorite teams in chat. 26 million. I think we've raised it by about 1 million at least whilst we've been here alone. So a big congratulations to everyone out there as we progress towards the deadly Chaos Lizard, and also all the banners and sprays that you can get in game as well, supporting your favorite teams from around the world. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, Grubby, is that you mentioned just briefly that Soul Torturers, with the new 2 members that they've got from Singapore, they feel like they can bust out more strategies, more play styles, and I think from what we've seen the past couple of days, that's never been more important.
Yeah, it has never been more relevant because there's so many ways to play Heroes of the Storm right now. It can be all about team fights, objective manipulation, or ignoring both of those and just manipulating the map with globals and with special styles. And I, for one, am very excited to see how Mira and Zeiss are going to be fitting into Soul Torturers, bringing in a little bit of a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, especially since Mira and Zeiss are no stranger to this kind of stage.
I mean, yeah, with the past that they've had internationally, I didn't keep track of the amount of times. I want to say it's like 3 to 4 times we've had them perform at the international stage. They're no stranger to it, but I do want to bring to light with the adaptability that we're going to be looking for from them into this series. I want to focus a little bit on the macro play. We heard SPT talking about they want to concentrate on macro, that they think macro is their strength. And SPT spawned as a team within China right after E-Star and some of the kind of weakness in team fighting pulled away, and the Chinese region heavily focused onto their macro play. It feels like they have given about a year's worth of time to learn to not only focus onto macro, but then also synergizing that in with the teamwork or the team fighting. And I go for a non-league region here. Most of the time, they struggle into macro play. So I really feel like China, and specifically SPT's growth over the past year, is going to be extremely overwhelming.
Well, we're going to find out which battleground we're going to head to first for game number 1. So without further ado, it will be Towers of Doom, chosen by Soul Torturers. What are we making of it?
Well, very interesting that Dragonshire is not banned out here. SPT, they already said themselves they are undefeated on Dragonshire here. So that is going to be a powerful map. Another cool thing to point out is that SPT, in preparing for the BlizzCon, have pretty much played in the best of 2 format, as that is how HGC China is being played out. And that means you've only got 2 games maximum. It can end in a tie, and that means that one-trick strategies could be extra powerful. So going into Towers of Doom here, anything goes.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Game number 1 for day 4 here for the HGC 2017 finals as SPT goes up against Soul Torturers. Find out who's going to advance on to the winners match.
For me, I'm watching Soul Torturers here. I want to see if they're going to prioritize their tank in the early stages of their draft. ETC has been very important for Squirrel in the past, but also at the last Eastern Clash, they did a lot of pit compositions, Stitches, a Noobrag, these type of heroes that allowed for them to find one hero and target them down with their range assassin and usually an Illidan mixed in. So I want to see how quickly Mur being brought to this team here, how things change here for Soul Torturers as they take on SPT. Murden, the first one to be picked up, and we have continued to see him throughout the tournament. He is quite the beast.
So Murden right now has a 15 win, 12 loss win record in the tournament. He is the most played hero of the tournament so far.
Yeah, and he's just been, you know, surprisingly climbing through the stature of prioritization within the draft, because we talked about day number 1, we thought he would be a very hyped up hero, and then that oftentimes he made it post-secondary ban phase. It does feel like before we have even made it past the group stage here that teams are changing that thought process, but a staple at the top half of the draft, Brightwing and ETC continue here through Group D.
Brightwing not doing as well herself. 6 wins and 13 losses so far in the opening week of BlizzCon. At least 3 of those wins were from Fnatic. I don't know that we should leave them out of the stats, as they truly are a part of it, but because they're such a good team, well, there you go. So Brightwing's win rate has been not so good so far. There's 2 potential globals here if ETC elects to go with Stage Dive. Even just taking a hero that has 2 very valid heroics is such a good thing to take early, because you can choose to go into either one.
Yeah.
Kind of viability is nice.
More flexible. And it does provide that, you know, concern towards the macro play that I was a little bit fearful of that SPT would be able to dominate on. But no surprise, SPT will continue down that focus with having a global on the Dahaka and the top wave clear with that Rhaegar pickup. Ultimately, neither team really committing to anything. I like the fact that both were very considerate of just making it a generic, relatively strong composition and try and see if they can make a power play here in the post-secondary ban phase.
Just reactive there, wanting to match the Brightwing with the Dahaka. Dahaka having one of the highest win rates currently in the tournament. I believe 63% between his picks. I think top 3 is where he's at right now. So Dahaka, not a bad pickup, especially on Towers of Doom. We've seen him used to full effectiveness and a great way to handle that Brightwing, especially if Brightwing leaves a fight too early and you do believe that your team is able to disengage. Dahaka pops that W, charges forward, grabs a couple of turrets, and even puts some damage on a fort.
Exactly. Plus, he's the much better global. Dahaka is always the second warrior. Brightwing is like a support, so she often needs to be with the team to give any healing at all. So it's not great for her to be very late to a fight. Think also of Rhaegar. He is, of any hero that's played 7 or more times in this tournament so far, he's the #1 win rate with 15 wins and 9 losses. So very solid to take early on, and still doesn't reveal much about SPT's direction later on in the draft.
I felt like we were going to have to see Soul Torturers commit to essentially banning out what their next 2 picks were going to be in the 3-4, but they still managed to keep it very, very vague with an objectively, you know, you can make the argument that the Tassadar ban is going to be worth it. I just felt like, you know, we would see that kind of moment where it's like, oh, ban the Cassia, we can expect this heavy melee auto attacker, but they still had an impactful ban without committing in any direction. So now SPT is equally kind of sitting there going, where are they going to go with this? Are we missing any major red flag?
Only red flag that might be up here is the Greymane, but they have decent control on Greymane here between the Murd and the Dahaka themselves. Rhaegar also makes it a bit difficult to make that full dive forward, but if they want a safe ban that they don't really need to grab on their team, Greymane wouldn't hurt too much. They're looking to look at that Sonya, though, who has been a powerhouse in the top lane.
Sonya has been, I mean, has had insane impact here throughout this tournament. I have been really, like the Murden argument that we were talking about before, I've always felt like Sonya was going to be that as well, but she seems to not be prioritized here at the same level that I thought she would. Murden is continuing upward. I'm trying to look for the argument here as why she hasn't pulled ahead.
She sees a lot of play, 11 wins, 12 losses, about middling win rates. Still, teams are figuring out exactly where they can play her, right? It wouldn't be the best matchup for her so far, but they remove her anyway, as she's great at taking camps. Towers of Doom has a very heavy emphasis on Sapper camp control at the bottom lane.
One thing we've got to be concerned about is the fact that Medivh has made it through this draft. SPT is no stranger to committing to a Medivh on a map like Towers of Doom. But as Soul Torturers go with the Lucio double support, Brightwing, well, specifically Lucio, I just want to highlight, I personally feel is the best secondary support in almost all cases, just because the high amount of mobility he provides to your team, and having somebody else to make up for, you know, his immediate healing that he doesn't have. That mobility translates to increased damage and decreasing the damage opportunities for your opponent. So I always, just any kind of synergy with him or double support with him, I feel like I'm a huge advocate for.
It's been strong throughout the tournament. Lucio Rhaegar, Lucio Brightwing, not a bad mix at all. And now SPT will have to be looking for their damage here soon. Already they have decent engage into the mercenary camps in the bottom left, so something that can help out, of course, in that regard, and then do well in the bottom lane, while Dahaka can transition to the double soak on the top lane and the middle lane. Vala always stands out as an immediate go-to, but is it squishy against this Greymane here? Would they have to grab another support?
I would like to see the double support in Senchel and Vala, because the guy can really turn things up when necessary. if they don't go into the Vola direction, they already have the opportunity, the Dahaka, to be able to stop some of the bleeding on the macro game, so you just need to make sure that the 4-man has kill potential. I wouldn't mind that secondary support being that Karazim to follow up, get some damage onto the Muradin. There's the Vola, and they commit to the Uther instead of the Karazim, but ultimately more defensive capabilities. You were concerned about the squishiness. Uther far better there than, well, I guess not better, but more forgiving than the Karazim.
Can straight up stop Premium in his tracks too.
Could even do a bit more of an aggressive battle style Uther that we often see coming out of the Chinese region. More stuns, maybe Holy Shock or Divine Storm. Or
Battle
just go
Uther.
with the Divine Shield and save Rhaegar from that dive, because Rhaegar's one of his main weaknesses is getting dove on pretty heavily, and so far Soul Torturers has that dive comp. Looking at their final pick, Arthas benefits heavily from the 45% movement speed that Lucio can give temporarily.
Mixes well with ETC too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the, they're going to go with the Malthael instead, going with the solo warrior here, but it will be able to aid, you know, at least with the cross-supporting, having the opportunity to kind of give that grievous wounds.
Now with Malthael, I think Divine Storm makes even more sense, but it can be tough to... If Lucio is on point and Melody C, so Tetcher has told me, who cast the Chinese region, Melody C is a fantastic Lucio. If he's on point with his sound barriers, they can pretty much just negate any instant blow up.
Yeah. Yeah, the Malthael will go in, try to force out the stun, try and read the Divine Storm coming out, sound barrier pops in, and then you just run them over. Very interesting draft here from Soul Torturers.
Fred, thoughts?
I feel like on that last pick, I would have liked to see something like the Arthas we were talking about. I feel like I needed to see a little bit more survivability within this composition. But then immediately when I was thinking of some of the heroes that go into that survivability, it doesn't have enough damage output. And the Arthas was the only one kind of with that middle ground hybrid. Ultimately, I just feel like I don't mind the Malthael. He is still very an objectively strong hero, but I don't like him as much into double supports and in this type of case where we see it picked up.
Okay. I'm still thinking about the Malthael and how I see it kind of going into that, but I'm the host. I'm not going to kind of go down that path. Grubby, looking at what you see from SPT and Soul Torturers, who do you think kind of got the better end of the stick here?
I see a lot of utility in Soul Torturers between Brightwing and ETC, a lot of battlefield control, but SPT is very tanky indeed. So it's going to be, it's a cliche, but it's going to be about execution. I don't see a clear lead per se on either side.
Trick?
Yeah, I actually look over to Soul Torturers, and I think they're actually going to have a strong laning phase. They have the option of putting Brightwing in that top lane just to bully Dahaka even more, and Malthael, if you misplay that lane, can beat Dahaka out right away too. I think I lean towards Soul Torturers here. I think with a good Tormented Souls, the great play of Brightwing, they can edge out an early lead and run with it.
Do you think that Soul Torturers here feels the it's not even animosity from SPT or whatever, but obviously we heard both of their emotions coming in, and it's felt like SPT kind of focused on that far more than Soul Torturers did. Do you think that they're also kind of in the same boat with the rivalry that has kind of bustled here a bit?
Of course, the team that has lost is going to focus far more heavily on it than, you know, the team that left victims by the wayside. It's like, oh, whatever. But
yeah, I'll be looking at SPT's early game. If they're aggressive in their face, Murden is jumping over walls into blind mercenary camp steals, I think SPT is going to be bringing that blood and trying to break them down.
Don't forget that you can vote over on Twitter with the hashtag SPT or ST. Make sure to hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports as well. Continuing forwards, we're ready to go over to our commentary team for the first series of the day. So without further ado, take it away.
Welcome into the final day of the HGC Finals opening week as we kick things off with Soul Torturers versus Super Perfect Team. My name is Jay Howe alongside Caldor. Caldor, what do you make of the drafts and with our first day of the matchup?
I agree with Grubby here. I think it comes down to the execution, and I personally am super excited to see SPT because so far, for me personally, China was a bit of a letdown. We know they have their problems with visas, with players that have to sub in for teams, but I would love them to have a bit more of an impact, and I think SPT is probably the best chance that we're going to see some of that Chinese dominance and aggression, so I'm excited for this.
The history has been told between these two teams. They talked about it in their video. They're so used to playing each other at these LAN tournaments, so we're going to figure out how this goes as we head into game number 1 here to kick things off. SPT waiting on ST on the other side. I imagine we might have a few tongue twisters throughout the day, but definitely want to see how this China versus Taiwan matchup squares out.
It's definitely going to be a super interesting match here, starting off with Group D, our last group in the opening week, and of course SPT. They have also a bit of a regional reputation to live up to here, as CE fell short already on the first day, and BTG could also not really deliver. Now we're starting our first map off. We are on Towers of Doom, and all the way to the left side we have Misaka on Murden for SPT. We have Sa on Uther, the sub player. So up on Dehaka, Melody C on Rega, and Jing Shao on Vala.
Glad you handled all the tough ones, because I've got Soul Tortures on the right side, as we're going to see Zays moving over from that Southeast Asia region. He'll be on the mouth. They'll Scroll. I said it this morning at breakfast. I said, I wonder how many games we'll get of Scroll on ETC. If we look back at history, he has dominated on that character. Of course, Goddog on Greymane, Cucumber on Lucio, and Murr, of course, rounding it out on Brightwing.
On the SPT side, I'm still heavily in favor of calling him just Soap.
It's a lot easier to read, but
exactly.
Either way, we've got our game underway here. Both teams going to meet in the middle for now.
You mean it's a lot cleaner?
It's a lot cleaner. I missed it. Low-hanging fruit. Totally missed it.
Okay, so at this point, when we're talking about the entire setup, of course, we have, as heard from the panel, discussed a bit Malthael into Dehaka on that top lane is going to be interesting. But the adjustment that comes from SBT, as they also know it's a losing matchup, is an immediate rotation with Rega as well. So there are actually heavy rotations on the map now from SPT, definitely against what we normally see on this map, not that dedicated 1 versus 1 at the top lane, but instead rotations between top mid and bottom mid.
Yeah, it's a very interesting approach, to say the least. Obviously, when you have Rhaegar on your side, it makes it a little bit easier to get faster rotations because of that clear. Of course, he went Lightning Bond at 1, making that even faster, as he can just kind of double up on that and get that wave clear. But we look like we have a gank coming up here on the top to try and punish that.
Yeah, going straight for Dehaka here and trying to take him down. Zays already attempting to get the final few hits in, but the Dino lives fight another day. So at this point, Soul Tortures showing some aggression, good rotations themselves, putting the pressure onto SBT. And from the get-go, we have a very dynamic start into Game 1.
I like the adaptation there. And we actually heard in our videos that they like to control the pace of the game. And one way to do that is to make sure that your teammate, or your enemy can't exactly just get the rotations, and with the counterplay is already there.
It's one of the most interesting statements to me. Well, hold that thought for a second, because we have another fight breaking out up at the top lane, and this time Dehaka might not be as lucky. A quick burrow saves him for a few seconds, but it's not enough. First ball going over to Soul Tortures as they take the camp.
A nice invade there, not able to get up there in time, and we will have our triple altar phase here. I think the gentleman's agreement in the top will happen, where the action, of course, will pop off there on the middle one, potentially, as level 4 now has been officially picked up by both teams.
Now Rhaegar, of course, is back to business, and he is going to make his appearance here in just a few seconds. In the meantime, Murr already trying to get the channel through Misaka with the attempted Stormbolt, but Cucumber is present and immediately takes the hit here for his teammate, quite literally, and therefore we see Soul Tortures with another Altar channel through, and they take the lead in points on the core.
At the early lead, Caldor, I want to get your thoughts on this, because we got SPT, we've seen Vala build, and we've seen a lot of NAEU, especially in the league regions that we have. We've seen a lot of Q build, especially in that solo carry style role for Vala. She's opting for the multi-shot. Do you think we might be missing a little bit of burst damage to try and get through the Lucio sustain, the Brightwing sustain?
Vala is actually a hero that it's probably one of my favorite heroes ever since Alpha, and I was a huge enemy of the Q build when Chris, in particular on the European side, started to play it, and I was always fully in the camp of multi-shot. But as time continued and Chris just showed that worth and other players adapted it, I tried it myself a lot more, and I'm really loving Q build. I can understand that in this case, with how they are rotating, how aggressively they are trying to clear waves, they want to opt for a little bit more clear damage. I think that build has also gave them a huge advantage later on level 16 once they pick up Frostshot. But for the early stages of the game and also for the camp control, personally, I would have preferred them to go into the Q build, since at the bot lane, both of the camps are taken just so much faster and so much easier if you have the Q build Vala. But it's also always a choice of preference to an extent, but they have to adapt their playstyle now that they opted into the multi-shot hybrid.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out here, as we do see the camp control here at the bottom, SPT grabbing that. We did see on the mini-map, however, Soul Tortures again making the priority on the top lane. We know how strong the bottom lane is, but they've got a heavy priority here to put the pressure onto Dehaka. You got to imagine once they get control of this top lane, they'll probably look to turn it towards bottom. But right now, the early game, however, SPT will have control, but we've got another altar phase. It is going to be a single altar this time, but 7 versus 7 here. See how it plays out.
And SPT opted to not defend at the top lane, so they couldn't make the rotation in time, but instead they moved down to the bottom of the map, trying to also push heavily in with the help of Vala. But as you said, experience is still pretty even at this point. Soul Torturers have taken a slight lead in XP, but it's nothing too big just yet. Whereas we see that altar popping up once more on the globals at the top and the bot. They might Brightwing already moving in. Soul Torturers definitely trying to secure that altar.
Asaka trying to get in there. He does get that W down at least at the last moment, but the team is so split in that cocktail. Getting some value there as the burst damage, and right now Soul Torturers has SPT split in zone.
It was a fantastic wedge that Soul Torturers was driving into the composition of SPT here. Zoning out Vala and Uther was worth so much, and especially the cocktail that you pointed out. Raymain doing so much damage with the poke that SPT realized, even if we tap now, we are never going to win a sustained fight over the objective, so they give it up. But they need to be a bit more careful. At the same time, they isolate the target and they get an easy kill against Lucio, immediately saying, hey, we're still here to fight. You haven't won the game just yet, boys.
It's like, hey, let's go for an invade, but hold on, wait a minute, there's a Lucio coming down. Why don't we just jump on him? We've got something called heavy impact. We're going to get that stun lockdown control and they get that kill.
Yeah, Mirrodin change is definitely making him so much more aggressive, and that's such a huge threat in particular. So that's definitely something to watch out for overall. You know, for me, the interesting thing, and I was already trying to talk about it a bit earlier when we had some fights popping up, is that the Chinese teams in the last few events always came in and said, you know what, we love to play the macro game. We love to dominate the battleground. But traditionally, it's the team fights where they really excel. And to be quite frank, I feel the last few events where they told us over and over again, macro game is what we excel at. This is what we're trying to do. They always fail to do that. So this is something where I have my eyes on SPT and I want to see if they can deliver this time.
So far, it's 1-1 in terms of kills. 28, however, left on the core of SPT. Slight deficiency as we've got a tongue there landing on Disease, but no real backup damage there. So no fight breaking out there, but the Sapper Camp, of course, a point of contention at that top lane still.
I have to say, though, when we're talking about control, it's really Soul Torturers that are dictating the pace of that game. They are continuously taking the camp at the top. They're putting heavy pressure on Dehaka. They're forcing rotations out of SPT. And talking about SPT, we have a very interesting situation where Rega, after Uther took Divine Shield, is actually holding best his heroic ability. Now, our panel has discussed that there is, with Uther Rega, an option for Divine Storm. But it looks like SPT is actually debating to going into Bloodlust at this point.
Yeah, what if you just flip the script and say, look, they locked it in. It's like, I'll go the offensive heroic because we've got ourselves a potential fight breaking out. Soul Torturers once again doing a very good job zoning out. However, God Dog is rotating over, making sure that he's in the fight. Cucumber gets stalled just for a moment by Xing Chao on Fallen. We've got a fight potentially coming out here as another single altar phase is definitely in place.
And now we have a couple of very interesting situations here where you can, of course, counter the Bloodlust with Emerald Wind on the side of Brightwing, or even just a good sound barrier on the side of Lucio. And that's what has to happen. Here comes the Bloodlust as we see SPT going in. They want to go for the kill, but as predicted, immediately the Emerald Wind as the counterplay.
The Emerald Wind goes out, but we've got a tongue landing on there to ETC, who's trying to get away, and he is going to live for the moment, but ETC is sliding back in, looking for the mosh pit, not going to hit anybody right now, Caldor.
Yeah, nothing but that space, and now ETC in a bit of trouble. It was a great sound barrier as they moved in, but all of a sudden it's Malfiel who dies first. He goes down at 4 versus 4 as we see Rega die as well. It's a bloodbath as we have Soul Torturers going deep and trying to turn the fight around.
Fallen trying to commit the kill there onto God Dog, unable to do so, taking some damage himself, backing up, but that will be Uther coming in saying, I'm bringing the hammer down. Boom, and that's going to be a 3 versus 4 right now, and right now SPT forcing back Soul Torturers.
But what a fight there. The Bloodlust coming in, and immediately the reaction from Soul Torturers. Emerald Wind pushing them back, then the re-engage from SPT, but a great sound barrier, timed perfectly, and that looked really grim for SPT for a moment. And I think a big part of why Soul Torturers started to look a bit rough was that ETC just completely failed that mosh pit.
And it's, I don't want to say it's a bit surprising, but if you've watched international tournaments for a year plus now, you know the name Scroll is synonymous with ETC. That's how they've been able to surprise people coming in from that region. That's not the typical that we expect, maybe early game jitters, I don't know. I expect that we'll see more plays throughout the day though.
To be frank, so far this entire week, we have seen our fair share of failed mosh pits. Now, you don't always have to hit a 4-man with a mosh pit or even 3 heroes. Even a zoning mosh pit at times can be just the perfect choice and can be absolutely intentional. But we have seen a couple of mosh pits that were, let's say, questionable so far.
Questionable, you're like, I really wish the observer wasn't looking at me right now. It's those moments right there, but we've got some pressure here in the bot lane as we see the split up in the top as well. They've had that priority towards the top as they soft defend and hold the keep down here at the bottom. Doing well. We've got ourselves a pretty even games in terms of experience and fairly even in terms of core health.
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving what we are seeing here, and this is what I was hoping for heading into this group. But once again, Lucio, and this is the second time that Cucumber on the rotation gets caught by SPT. He needs to be a bit safer with Lucio. He needs to take the safe paths in these situations. Now his team is in a 5 versus 4 spot as the altars are activating in another 15 seconds.
It was literally the identical spot where he pathed before, and it's just single target blow up is there. The Bird and Uther just stun lock. There's just enough firepower behind that, but we've got ourselves a double altar phase. Brightwing shifting in. We'll see Rhaegar on the minimap splitting off for the bottom one, which means the middle one will be the point of contention here to fight over.
This one's free already. They know that. They have the Haka at the top, and now they can fight over the middle. So we have the shots fired both teams now on identical points on the core, but here comes the Haka going in with the isolation, immediately trying to see if they can get another kill against Mur here maybe, but the sound barrier comes out. They're holding back on the Emerald Wind. Bloodlust has already been popped during that fight, and so far SPT has got the kill that they're looking for.
Haven't gotten it so far, but they're still looking as we see Feeding Frenzy. Nice burrow under to dodge the power slide by ETC. Mur starting to get the channel on the backside. They're completely zoned out. Misaka gets zoned out there. Nicely done, but we've still got to fight as Tormented Souls is out.
Not a good spot for SPT to be in, and Uther goes down as we see Soul Torture starting to chase and pushing them back. The Haka goes down as we see the cocktail come through from Greymane.
That terrifying growl in my ear there was something, but we've got ourselves a game right now. Soul Tortures fighting back, and now they're putting the pressure here on the bot line with the death timers a little bit longer. They know they can safely posture up and push in here. Both towers, the gate go down. We've got double sapper camps at the bottom. You can imagine Soul Tortures, after so much priority on the top, it's going to turn their focus to the bot lane.
Outside of Lucio every now and then running it down mid lane, I have to say that Soul Torturers are actually playing a very clean game right now. I absolutely love the way that they are approaching team fights, where especially the two supports are communicating very clearly what they want to do, who's taking the lead, do we disengage with the Emerald Wind, do we go with the sound barrier first here. So every single time that SPT tries to go in with a Bloodlust approach, even with the Haka hitting an immediate isolation, Lucio has his team's back, goes straight for the sound barrier, then Brightwing is safe again and can opt for the Emerald Win if needed. So I really like the way that they are controlling team fights at this point.
I don't see it too often, but how many dogs outrace a man on roller skates? You're not getting away from that. You're not getting away from that, but speaking of not getting away, there's the stun lock going to be there. Mur taking quite a bit of damage, but the spell shield from that Pixie Dust helping out.
Whatever I thought we were talking about, that wasn't it. That came out of nowhere. Level 16 talents, on the other hand, have now been hit for Soul Torches, and of course we know that that also means that Lucio is going to hit his biggest power spike. So at this point we have him with, I'm not going to try and pronounce it anymore. I'm always failing.
I never have, because I just don't want to.
I tried a few times in the past, and I thought this might be the moment where I finally step it up again, but I have to admit that at this point I just give up. Rejuvenescentia.
I got you right there. Murray going to get the channel here on the bottom altar for free once more. Soul Tortures every single time, just completely zoning out SPT.
I think I got at least a couple of pity points for that pronunciation. So. But yeah, jokes aside, the talent, of course, I mean, his power spike on 16 is absolutely insane. That doesn't only go for him. When we're talking about Greymane's damage output, that's another big tool that they can use here. Now SPT, it's already a bit telling if you're looking at their own setup right now that they have actually gone with Muradin, not into the extra jump. You're seeing him with Stone Form here. So Muradin himself, even with a double support, is saying, hey, I'm having trouble here. I already went into healing static on 13, but instead of trying to initiate into the opponent's backline with the range on Warptos, he instead goes into Stone Form and says, we somehow have to keep me alive. So this is the most passive build out of any Muradins in this tournament that we have seen thus far. So Misaka playing it very cautiously. And I'm not quite sure if that is necessarily the correct call here, so I'm really curious to see how that's going to pan out for them in the future team fights.
Yeah, because you would imagine he'd try and get on that backside, especially with the Malthael going on Tormented Souls and the Greymane. So I agree with your point. There are a lot of melees, so maybe you can kind of see both sides. But either way, that's a debatable topic.
Yeah.
But what's not debatable is Sappers coming in bot lane as God Dog stepping very far forward as he's getting eaten alive there by Arena Vengeance. But a nice Z in there from Brightwing, going to keep him alive. They're looking for the re-engage, but SPT walks away.
And we talked about Vala builds at the beginning of the game, and throughout the early and the early mid game with an arrow build, I feel we will get a lot more value, especially in the time shortly after you finish your quest talent on 4. But right now, we have 16, and with Frost Shot, all of a sudden, Vala has way more poke potential, and also the potential to just slow opponents down. ETC hammered into the ground with multiple stuns, getting chained here. Vala following up with a kill. Not going for Manticore here, but it's really just this extra poke that you have, the range, the safety on Vala, and also the control during the team fight that makes all the difference. So right now, SPT capitalizing on that kill with an immediate call for boss.
I like it, but at the same time, I like Soul Torture's call as well. They recognize that. They instantly went to the bottom. They're going to push in bot lane. They should obtain themselves a keep here. And SPT, in kind, also says, well, look, we're not going to make it down there to defend, so we're going to have to get something in return. They push in top lane.
Yeah, you're making a great point. For them, it would have been a horrible decision to try and somehow get in with Brightwing using the Emerald Wind and fighting over the boss, maybe stagger depth, so they took the ult at the bot lane. But I also like the reaction from SPT, a quick drop at the boss and then immediately the rotation to the top forward, to the top bell tower and getting that. So now we have once again the altars on the map, and of course the Globals are going to play a huge role here. Already channels starting up, both of the teams looking at level 19 in a few seconds. But SPT has started to equalize the points in the core again. 16 versus 16. Soul Torturers, they claim 4-shot themselves, put SPT down to 12. But right now, as you said, we really have a game on our hands. This is so close.
It's very close. You know, SPT, they wanted to make a call there, but they're on a timer at that point. As we see the picture there, there were sappers that were picked up before all that went underway, and those would have pushed in as they do core damage when they reach that depth zone there. Guaranteed if they make it across, so making sure SPT drops out, looking for opportunities elsewhere, and they find it by way of the mid-keep on the side of Soul Tortures.
Yeah, so now we're having, again, Bell Towers claimed here, and of course Soul Torture is going to try and take this one back. Keep in mind that SPT has just reached 20, so we're looking at Storm Talents for them. Vala going into the Firefly Quiver, and therefore having the extra range available to her now, keeping her in an even safer spot against heroes like Malthael and also, of course, Greymane. Soul Torture, on the other hand, I'm really saying this is going to be pretty brutal once we have 20 versus 20, and it's very difficult against the double support setup that we see from Soul Tortures after Lucio's power spikes, and with the way they've been controlling team fights, SPD has to be careful here. It's still a close game. Even kill score as well, but there is not going to be an advantage for SBT outside of that extra bell tower that they just claimed with Haka.
I want to talk about a couple juicy level 20s here. We're seeing an upgrade to the 20th adaptation, but we're also seeing an upgrade to Divine Storm. And on this map, Kaldor, we know what that upgrade can do, especially in these close games where you get the channel. Tell me about it.
I'm actually surprised that he insta-locked it.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he would wait and then adapt situationally. Now, if you actually take the extra seconds on your 20, you can nearly channel an entire altar through. So if you time it properly and you get a bit of a head start, you can cheese an altar and then maybe decide the game in your favor. The problem is I don't really see a need to take it this early here, especially given the situation where on one hand we have 16 hit points on the side of Soul Tortures, 12 for SPT. I would have expected him to hold the talent back and then decide in the situation, okay, what do we need here?
100% agree, and we've got a 20 versus 20, 16 versus 12 core health for the side of Soul Tortures versus SPT. Double altar phase going to be interrupted at the bottom. We've got both altars right now being contested with a small skirmish here as we have a look in, but the double stun, the Z in from Brightwing's going to get the shield, going to get the peekaboo. They're going to try to have the fight as the sound barrier goes out.
Yeah, and this time the supports on the side of Soul Tortures with a slight panic moment here, using sound barrier and Emerald Wind at the same time in an attempt to save God Dog on Greymane, which they actually did, but they lose out on the altar. It was a fantastic move by Dehaka, going in, jumping immediately on Greymane, but then the support saved him, but they use both cooldowns. Now Malthael popping the Dominant Souls, trying to go deep here. Misaka is zoned away from the rest of the team, and Godok is trying to follow it up with a quick kill against him, but Murden still on the run, drops Avatar and is able to make it out.
Oh, maybe let's get juiced up here as the Avatar comes out, but the Alter's trying to be channeled here by a Cucumber. I don't know if they've got the poke. They find themselves in a bad spot. Scroll doing the zoning, keeping everybody out, but we see Murden sneaking in one more time. The tongue's gonna be there, and down goes ETC.
ETC dead again. Stroll with a lot of trouble, never even used his mosh pit. Now Murden jumps in once again with the sound barrier again being popped here, but it's not enough. Here comes the isolation, and down goes Malthael. SPT following up the kill against ETC with another drop on Malthael, who immediately buys back and is on his way into the battle.
Now the zoning comes from SPT as they're on the backside. They're the ones getting the channel. And, you know, we can actually call the isolation, you know, get that big old thing on your head. We call it bobblehead night here. You know, if you've been to any sporting events since you've been here in the U.S. Bobblehead night, that's what we call it. Just bobblehead for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And his silences actually were absolutely fantastic so far. It was the initiation that he had there immediately. And if, as you said, if you get the value out of the Haka when he moves in with the 20, it's insane what you can do to a team fight, especially if you hit the supports and Soul Torturers does not have that disengaging moment, then this single Dehaka play can make all the difference in the team fight, so you're absolutely right.
The scary thing about this when it comes to the bot lane late game, Caldor, is that we have the potential for a single altar phase, which could be bottom lane. And when you don't have control of the bell tower on your side, it's tough. You can force the rotation out, as we've got a potential boss start being here. But when you have the sapper camps, it forces the rotation out. You have the same potential top lane. However, now they're forced to rotate bottom. And this play right here by SPT, they're going to get that extra core. Now they're only one altar away. Oh, by the way, Caldor, we already talked about that Divine Shield upgrade. One altar. Not too shabby.
So now all of a sudden we have the extra 2 seconds on the Divine Shield, and this is going to make things very, very awkward for Soul Torturers. I have to say that SPT, first when they went for boss, they didn't immediately initiate on it. They waited until they had vision on the bot lane so that they knew it was a safe call. And I like that a lot, since we've seen a lot of teams coming back into a match and then throwing it with an overly aggressive call. So very well played by SPT. I like that a lot. The problem that I currently have is that Soul Torturers just felt, to me personally, throughout the entire game, like they had a huge amount of control. And in the last team fight, that's where they all of a sudden showed nerves, showed panic, and now they lost not only the lead, but they are, as you said, with the upgrade on 20 for Uther,
Soul Torturers,
so close.
They cannot hesitate here, Caldor. If they let somebody get a 1 second channel and then the D shield comes out, it's over. They have to put the pressure on right now. They're postured up. They're trying to get there. Misaka trying to stall it out. He gets the Storm Bolt out to Haka coming in on the backside. The power slide's going to be there. And now we see they're moving in. SPT looking for that inch that they need. They're holding that D shield for the moment.
Stroll has to step it up right now. In the last few fights, he didn't look good, and we need the value out of Mosh Pit and his Turbos in 20. That needs to happen. He's under a lot of pressure, and as you said, the 5 second channel here, you only need channel for a second, and then you can go through. Here comes the Bloodlust as they go in, and again, ETC blown up there. Haka with the isolation. The Bloodlust comes in, they can't save him. He goes down, a 5 versus 4, and SPT is on their way to victory. Can Malthael change the fight?
Zay's going in. He got the kill on to Dehaka. Now they're continuing to put the pressure on. As we see on the backside, it's going to go down. Rhaegar is going to, Greymane is going to fall there as they continue to put the pressure on. That's 3 members down on the side of Soul Torturers. And now it's basically cleanup duty from this point on. And it looks like SPT doing Zays is like, hold on.
Late game Malthael, been good.
He's not too shabby. He's going to be back on the battleground, but he's not going to be here in time. That is going to be SPT taking game number 1.
SPT getting the original kill in the fight, and then Malthael nearly turning it around with the kill against the Haka. But in the end, it's just the Chinese team being a bit too strong. Very impressive performance by Soul Torturers, though. And for me, really, the weak point this time was ETC. Now, to be fair, ETC was heavily targeted in the last few fights. It was him always getting isolated, getting dragged immediately, and a lot of the focus that we saw from from SPT was on the front line. Drop him, make sure he can't use his mosh pit, and you win the battle. And they executed it extremely well. But given that Stroll in the past was so known for his ETC play, I have to say that I expected him to be a little bit stronger at the setup.
Look, we got a sneak peek in the background. Follow that game at 157,000 damage with 102,000 on the opposite side of Greymane. That guy was going off. Jing Chao, we know that name. And I know some other names that are over there at the desk that would also like to talk about this game, probably got some insight for us. Let's send it back over to the analysis concave.
That's right. Thank you very much, Shay Howe. Getting the name perfectly right there as well. I appreciate that. Now, what we saw there was actually SPT, as much as they did fall behind a little bit at the beginning, and it was a very good game to start off the day, may I add, they stuck to their game plan in those team fights to a T, constantly kept executing, and then towards the later stages of the game were able to be victorious.
I honestly didn't think that they were going to be able to pull it out. How the first couple of minutes ended up happening, and to be honest, I don't think they would have if it wasn't for Skrull getting caught out near the top boss. That was really kind of the breaking point of momentum for SPT to find themselves back even in experience and then be able to take an even team fight into Soul Tortures. Granted, from that point on, they really were displaying, I mean, very good team fight capabilities, but ultimately I do feel like it was just those picks allowed them to come back into the game.
But I think Misaka on Muradin was phenomenal. So many picks all over the map, really good control, full tank build as well, so he was very survivable. Really liked his Muradin play here. And of course, Chen, Xiao, and Vala, sublime.
Yeah, I think all the players on SPT had a moment of where they kind of exploded and showed where their heroes spiked up. For me, it was a level 20 with the Vala and, of course, the Haka, Contagion. Contagion won that team fight at the end. It landed on ETC, but it also extended to Brightwing, which prevented her from using Emerald Wind to save the ETC and allow for the Soul Tortures to win the team fight. Absolutely brilliant play by every single member of SPT. And I agree. The early game, I was looking at him and I was like, not so much. It's not going to happen. Like, Isolation missed 3 times on Brightwing trying to interrupt the Emerald Wind, which started to become Vala trying to use Rain of Vengeance, and there were some moments of non-clarity, but they really pushed it towards the end.
One more really cool thing is I thought that we're going to have a little bit of a lack of damage on the side of SPT. How about Bloodlust? Everyone extra attack speed. That was freaking cool in true China fashion.
Yeah, very rare we get to see Bloodlust.
To pick that Bloodlust into an Emerald Wind Brightwing, because usually if you see that, you pop Emerald Wind and you run away.
When Bloodlust was actually the go-to heroic, that was legitimately the direct counter in the meta, was if you see a Bloodlust Rhaegar, you go, we need Brightwing 100% Emerald Wind disengage to match it.
And that's why I said at the beginning of all of this, they executed their plan to a T, constantly going for that isolation on the Brightwing and being able to try and shut that down in synergy with the Bloodlust. We're going to hear a short word from our sponsors, and when we return, game number 2.